It is Tuesday night again, and I'm joining you from Madison, Wisconsin. Marnie Glickman is joining us from smoky Northern California.
Yes.
Marnie, are you able to breathe up there?
Barely. I just have to say, it is just terrible. We have wildfires, and the smoke is everywhere. We are having rolling blackouts because the bloated PG&E electric company that should be bankrupt, or maybe is, can't supply power. So if I go missing, it's because of a power outage.
Okay.
But other than that, I'm so happy to be here again with our special guest, Shari Latz Rothman.
Hello.
Welcome, Shari.
Thank you.
So,
hey, I don't see us on the Facebook page.
don't. It says we're live there.
Oh, I see it. Sorry.
Okay, good. No, it's good to check everything to make sure it's all happening. Our guests will come, or our viewers will come after us at this point. We've already seen this happen. So Shari, we covered this subject with Bill Hobbs a little bit last week, but I wanted to start out with you. You play the harp. And that's a big instrument that a lot of parents might say, the harp, I don't know, maybe try the harmonica or something like that. So tell us how old you were and how you became interested in playing the harp and whether you had to convince your parents to let you do it.
So you're right, there are a lot of parents who say no to the harp because they look at it and they say, that's nuts, I'm not buying a car based on the instrument you're playing. But when I started, I was only 8 years old. And my mom actually was the person who suggested it to me. She had gone to a dinner party. My dad was a regent at the University of Minnesota, and they went to a dinner party at the president's house, and they had a harpist playing. And it occurred to my mom that maybe it would be fun for me to do. So she came home and said, do you want to play the harp? And I said, I don't know, what's a harp? So she took me over to the music store, and I looked at it. I said, all right, I'll try it. Why not? And you start with a little one. So you don't really realize the commitment you might make down the road. You start with something that's pretty easy to transport, and it's not really as big a financial investment. And you just see if you like it. So we rented a harp, and then eventually we bought a small one. And then when I was in high school, when I was 16, we actually invested in the big pedal harp that you see in the orchestra. So that's what I play now professionally. And at that point, we then had to make sure we had a car big enough that would transport that. But it wasn't a big deal in our house because I have 3 older brothers, so we needed a big car anyway. So it just, it all worked out. It wasn't like a big stress for our family to have a big car that could move the harp.
Well, I have a couple nerdy detail questions about a harp. How big is a full-size harp, and how much does it weigh?
So they're not nerdy questions, Marnie. I get these a lot when I'm out playing. The full-sized harp is about 6 feet tall at the crown, which is the tallest part of the instrument. Mm-hmm. And it's, depending on which one you have, it's about 78 pounds, which is mine. Mine is actually called a semi-grand. It's 1 string less than the biggest one you can get. Because I'm small, I went with a slightly smaller harp. The regular harps are about 81 pounds. And there are 46 or 47 strings on the harp. So it depends, again, what kind of instrument you're looking for. When you start with the little harps, they'll have maybe 36 strings. Mm-hmm. Or even less. You can get 12 strings, 24 strings. It depends on how you move up gradually. But the big awkward thing about it is that because it's shaped like a triangle, it's just hard to carry. It's not, it just doesn't lift up like a 78-pound box. I mean, it's just really awkward, and they're easy to tip over, and it's kind of fragile. So you have to be extra careful when removing it.
And so you started playing when you were 8, and I have to say now we didn't give you a proper introduction because we were so excited to talk to you.
Thank you.
I first met Shari when we went to Meadowbrook Elementary School together, and I vaguely remember going to some of your performances, outside of school maybe. Now, did you play in a youth orchestra?
Not when I was in elementary school, but I did play in the elementary school orchestra. So maybe you saw me play at school.
No, we went somewhere. Maybe the University of Minnesota.
Maybe. I participated in some national competitions when I was little, when I was younger.
And did you?
I invited people. Not too many people knew that I played, so it's nice that I was willing to invite you.
Well, it's interesting since, you know, these are decades old memories. I have some vague memory of going somewhere outside of school where you and your harp were, but that's very vague.
Well, it's possible. I did play at the University of Minnesota when a national competition came into Minneapolis.
And did you fall naturally into the path of a professional harpist?
No, not at all, actually. I planned on going to college to major in, I don't know, journalism or political science or communications or something completely unrelated to music. It was always something that I had done for fun, just on the side, and never really seriously considered pursuing it. But when I was looking at colleges, I was hoping to continue taking lessons with someone who could help me grow and develop just as a musician. And I ended up getting a scholarship to the University of Michigan, which required me to be a music major. Mm-hmm. So I could choose to go somewhere else and maybe not like the teacher as much or get as much progress musically, or I could go to Michigan and study with a teacher that I really liked and major in music. So I decided to go to Michigan because it's an awesome school.
Yes.
And I just said, you know what, I'll double major. I'll go in and I'll major in music, and I'll also figure out what else I want to do while I'm there. And while I was there, I kept thinking, well, I like this and I like that, and I couldn't make up my mind about one subject in particular I wanted to double major in. And then when I really did some soul searching, I said, you know, I would rather practice the harp than write a research paper. And I would rather practice the harp than, you know, run around reporting for the newspaper or whatever it is. I kept coming back to the fact that I preferred spending my time making music than I did, you know, studying all these other subjects. So I ended up at that point saying, I'm going to go on to graduate school and see if I can do this for real. So
that's how being a music major works, huh? You play your instrument instead of writing papers and spending time in the lab and stuff?
No, I had to write all the papers too. I mean,
okay,
as a music major, you have to study music history and you have to do music theory. But I also had Michigan is a liberal arts school. So I had a lot of credits I had to do outside of music. Half of my credits were, communications and political science and whatever else, to fulfill all the general ed requirements. But I also had to play in the orchestra and in the band, and I had to become, proficient in all the musical areas. And I had to perform a lot of solo recitals.
So I'm interested in sort of what components make up your career as a professional musician. Mm-hmm. And certainly teaching is part of that. So tell us how you enjoy teaching.
So you can take a couple of different paths. I've chosen to be a freelance musician. So I perform, with whoever needs a harpist, whether it's for a wedding or a concert with an orchestra or at a church, or, at the Excel Center, or, whoever needs a harpist for some kind of performance that's more formal. And then I also do a lot of teaching, which is kind of the steady work. So I teach down at MacPhail Center for Music. I have a private studio, and I spent this past year teaching at St. Ben's and St. John's. And that way I have a consistent, income. And as it turns out, I really love teaching. I love sharing what I know about the harp. I love the people. I have just all of my students are terrific, and they're fun and they're interesting. And most of them aren't, wanting to pursue music as a career, but they find music to be a really important part of their lives. So it's fun to encourage that and watch them develop.
Okay, so did you really record with Prince?
I am on one of Prince's albums. He
Here
was
we go.
not, do tell.
Please.
Unfortunately, he was not there. I got an email one day asking me if I wanted to show up for this recording session for Prince. And of course I said yes. And it was only a couple days away. And they said, we'll send you the music when it's ready. And I never saw anything until the day before. And I think they were still writing the part, to be honest with you. And at like 11 o'clock on a Saturday night, or a Sunday night, I don't remember now, I went to this recording studio and they said, you know, Prince could be there, maybe not, who knows. But I just walked in and I had never done anything quite like that before. I'd done some recording with this rock band out when I lived in Los Angeles. But this was like a whole new level of being scared. And
Were
you know,
you at Paisley Park?
I was not at Paisley Park. No, unfortunately. I didn't get all the perks of it being Prince. But it was, you know, I mean, it was all his people. And it was the arranger of his music. And they put me in a studio by myself with my headphones on. And they, you know, they turned on him singing the song. And I had to play along with it. And we, you know, they had all these different things they wanted me to do. I was there till like 1 or 2 in the morning, which was, you know, it was pretty exciting for me because by then almost everybody else had gone. And so they said, you know, do you want to hear it back? And do you want to hear what it's going to sound like? And they were like being really nice to me about it. And so I said to one of the guys, what is the chance that this is actually going to be on Prince's album? And they're like, yeah, well, not very good. And I thought, well, this is my one chance ever of being on an album. So I just kind of lowered my expectation. And the guy who was, you know, in the sound booth, he goes, let me put it this way. You know, I've recorded 24 different songs for Prince and 8 of them have been on an album, you know. I'm like, okay, well, this was fun. This was really cool, but, you know, it's not likely to happen. And then about a year later, you know, the album came out and I'm on it. And not only was I on it, but I was featured on it, like solo harp with the narrator. So you can really, really tell that it's, you know, featured as an instrument, which was just so exciting. I can't even tell you. It's like the highlight of my career.
Okay, but what album, what song?
So the album came out in 2014. It's called Artificial Age, which if you say it quickly, it's Artificial Age. It was part of a double release with Plectrum Electrum, which was with his band Third Eye Girl. And Artificial Age was his solo album. And I'm on 2 tracks. So the first track, track number 9, if you want to look it up, is called Affirmation 1 and 2. And it's harp with Leanne somebody who's a narrator who was featured on the album. It's kind of a themed album. And track 9 actually is the introduction to track 10. So when I was in the studio listening, I was actually listening to track 10, which is the song Way Back Home. But he took everything that I did, or he and his producer took everything and cut and pasted it and reorganized it and totally took it out of context and reset it to go with this narrator. And that was the introduction into Way Back Home instead of being part of the song. And then they did a bit of a reprise at the end. So track 13 is called Affirmation 3. And that's where they ended up putting in all the strings and the harp and other parts of the stuff that we recorded. And so it's a reprise of Way Back Home. So you can hear the harp. And, you know, I don't get credit on the album. You know, the contractor who hired me gets the credit for hiring all of the string players. But like, I don't even care. I'm just like, Prince has heard my music and he thinks I'm good enough to put on his album. Like that's all okay with me. It's awesome. So
it's, I tell, like, especially younger people that I work with or who I'm friends with, we, you know, they, oh, Prince, you know, you're from Minneapolis, you must love Prince. But like, the thing that I think we have is that, you know, Prince was a big deal when we were teenagers, like when we were figuring out what music we liked. And the biggest recording artist, I mean, it was him and Michael Jackson, was from Minneapolis. It was such a big part of our identity. And I just have to wonder if at that same time, you know, you were learning to play the harp, you were getting better. I mean, did you ever think that like, oh, I might be a kind of musician that would play on a record like that?
No, I mean, my training is as a classical musician. Like, I was trained to play with orchestras and at parties as background music. And, you know, I, on my own, learned jazz music and pop music. And I like stuff, you know, I don't listen to a lot of classical music. I actually really love listening to the radio and top 40 songs and stuff like that. So I was listening to Prince. I went to his Purple Rain concert, you know. Yeah, you know, I mean, I thought he was pretty awesome. But never in a million years did I ever think that what I did would ever cross over into what he was doing. So it's pretty exciting.
That's amazing. Well, everyone is enjoying the stories. I'm going to read some of the greetings for you on our Facebook page. Thank you, everyone, for joining us yet again for an amazing interview. Karen Hintermeister says, hi, Shari. Lisa.
That's Karen Koski. Karen Koski.
Oh, nice. Hi, Karen.
Lisa B, that's so amazing, amazing story. And we have 2 harp-related questions already. I'll just read both of them to you. Jim Sexton says, hi, Shari. Does the harp hold its tune pretty well? How frequently do you have to tune it? I think Jim is a piano tuner.
He's a piano tuner, yeah. So no, the harp does not hold its tune at all. I can tune it before a concert, and by the time people are sitting down in their seats, it's out of tune again, which is really very frustrating as a musician. I do need to retune it regularly, and in order for it to maintain its pitch, I should tune it every single day.
Do you tune every single string?
Yes.
How long does it take?
Well, you know, I've been doing it for a long time, so it only takes me 5 or 10 minutes. And if I really want it to sound perfect, it'll take me longer. But, you know, my ears developed, you know, to the point where I can just play pretty quickly and tune it quickly. It's not like the piano where, you know, he has to do 3 different strings for each key on the piano. I have 1 string, so it doesn't take as long as tuning a piano. And it keeps its pitch pretty well as long as I maintain, you know, if I do my job and tune it regularly, it stays in tune pretty nicely.
Okay, we have another greeting and another question. Tisa Michelle Copsing says, hi, beautiful, lovely as ever, and happy to see you, smiley face.
Thank you, hi.
And Doug Robertson from Oregon asks, do you like Alice Coltrane's harp playing?
I'm not familiar enough with Alice Coltrane's music to offer a judgment on that. But in general, I do like most of the harpists I've heard out there. There are a few that are harder for me to listen to, but in general, I like what I hear. So
one of the things that we were covering before we came on live is that you're part of this little subgroup of people in our class who lives in the Hopkins School District and whose kids have gone to Hopkins schools. And you mentioned that, you know, going into the building, it's just a completely alien environment, really. It doesn't feel, you know, you don't recognize it really as the Hopkins High School that we all went to. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? How is it different? Is it better, worse, or just different? And what feelings those dredge up when you go over to HHS?
I would say it's, at the beginning, it was surreal for me. You know, when I walked in, the lockers were already ripped out. They're gone. The mall is just a big wide open space. So it felt very different. It felt really unfamiliar to me. The entrance feels different. I can't even remember exactly where the cafeteria was.
Oh, wow.
You know, I mean, you know, the old gym is still there, but they've built on this Lindbergh Center. So they have this new, beautiful facility, and I shouldn't say new, it's probably been there for a long time now. But it doesn't feel like the school we went to. And when I've had to walk around to go to my kids', you know, conferences and stuff, I get lost. You know, it does not feel exactly like the same school. But then I'll look at the media center and I'll say, oh yeah, that's the same. So it's just a bizarre feeling to be in the same building but not feel like I owned it like we did back when we were in school.
And so you have 3 children. You said 1 graduated from Hopkins and 2 are students there.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, I have a daughter who is now a junior in college, and then I have 2 boys. One's a senior this year and one will be a sophomore.
Are there any teachers around that we had?
Nope. Everybody's gone.
What are the chances that your kids and you will form a performing arts group of some sort? Do they play instruments as well, or did they move away from that completely?
You know, it's kind of funny you ask, because when I had kids, I somehow thought that they would all be musical and they would all love music and it would just be such a great thing to have a family band. But no, it's not going to happen. My oldest did play in the Hopkins band. She's a flutist and she, you know, really enjoyed being in music. And she plays in college, but she has no desire to do it beyond that. My 2 boys, my oldest one is a very talented percussionist, and he's involved in, you know, a lot of musical stuff, but he doesn't actually participate in the school music program because he had so many other classes he wanted to take. And my 3rd kid is also a drummer, and, you know, he likes it, but, you know, he doesn't want to practice. Most of us, you know, most people don't really want to practice. So, you know, it's not going to happen. They all love music, and really my goal as a parent was just to get them all to appreciate music, to, you know, recognize the skill, be able to read music, because that's so much easier to learn when you're younger. Mm-hmm. So I have people who can appreciate and listen to it, which is really all I ever asked for.
And so thinking about our time in school, do you have a favorite teacher that has influenced you? It doesn't have to be from Hopkins. I know we went to North together in Meadowbrook, so.
Mm-hmm. I'm not really one to pick favorites. So I wouldn't say there was one favorite teacher, but I would say that I really enjoyed learning, particularly from Mr. Borgerding. I don't know if either of you had him for English.
Yeah.
Jason, you and I might have been in the same class. But what I learned from him was probably the most useful in my life beyond high school, as far as learning how to write, how to think about writing, how to consider every word before you put it down, the critical thinking and the analysis that goes behind your writing. Which reminds me, I have an example of Jason's writing for the school newspaper here.
Nice.
Oh boy.
Yeah, your byline back is senior year. And then
wait, is that the, what was it?
The royal page.
Yes, and then did he write the article about do they call it, the trivia team?
It was the quiz bowl.
The quiz bowl team.
Yes, it was about the quiz bowl going to nationals.
Okay.
See? And
yes.
a lot of seniors on that team. It was almost all seniors.
Mm-hmm.
And then, Marnie, I happened to find another issue. I only saved a couple of them because I was on the paper, and so I saved a couple of them.
Okay.
But you were quoted in this article. There was a letter to the editor that Dave Book wrote where he credits you for, he's talking about the weighted grade fiasco.
Oh, yes.
Yes, big controversy.
It was partly because of student Senator Marnie Glickman's persistence that the policy is in effect today.
Oh.
So I mentioned that to my son, who's going to be a senior. And he said to me, it's still a weighted grade fiasco, Mom.
Oh,
Still heavily
absolutely.
funded. What, Marnie?
What's going on?
Well, it's just, you know, they still don't weight the grades. And so the question is, you know, why does Hopkins not do it when every other school in our area does? But, you know, the colleges have a way of balancing it all out. They all know that Hopkins doesn't weight their grades. So I think when you're looking at colleges, it all works out just fine.
Yeah, and we all seem to do all right anyhow. Last year, my high school, they didn't even have grades. They're like, we're just going to do pass fail. So how do you feel as a parent are they doing in-person learning? How's your pandemic coping going?
You know, our Hopkins is actually doing really well. They're keeping all of their options open, which I think is very respectful and appreciated. If you want to go fully distance learning, you can. And if you want to go hybrid, you can. They have different levels depending on whether you're elementary school, middle school, or junior high and high school. And they're going to phase it in as they watch, how the cases, grow or shrink. So they're planning on having everybody for the first month long distance, and then we'll reevaluate, and eventually they'll phase in 1 day a week and see if that works for people. But at the elementary school levels, they definitely are looking more towards in-person learning, because I think they, feel the social and mental development is different at that age.
So Shari, have you done anything different in the pandemic? Like, do you have any new hobbies or things you're learning?
I do. I have two things that have kind of come. One of them, I started right at the beginning of the pandemic, actually, was to start doing crossword puzzles, which I'd never really done before, but I started doing New York Times and the Universal Crossword Puzzle. So I'm learning some new things, which has been really fun. And if I can't get it, then I just leave it on the table and someone else in the family sits down and tries their hand at it. And the other thing I've been doing, which has kind of been growing in me for the last year and a half, I've started composing music, which I never did before. I never felt like I had anything interesting enough to say. But, for the last year and a half or 2 years, I started getting ideas. And with the pandemic, I started, writing more down and trying to, deal with some of my emotions and feelings about things that way, which has been really fun and a new creative outlet for me. So.
And so if we want to listen to any of your music, where can, you talked about your Prince pieces, but where else can we listen to you play if we can't see you perform live?
So there are a couple of places. If you go to my website, there's a video of me playing with Josh Groban at Excel Energy Center. So you could actually physically see me on the big screen up there. That's just a little snippet. I'm on a couple of CDs. One is with this rock band out of LA called Velvet Chain, which is not your typical, your typical organization. I'm with the National Lutheran Choir on one of their Christmas CDs from a while back. There's another CD with a local band called Orchid Eaton, which is due out anytime soon or sometime soon, where I helped them create some of the music, which was kind of fun. I'm on an early childhood music CD that came out from McPhail Center for Music. So that's where it is. Or if you want to hear me play, I guess you'll just have to find a way to connect with me on Zoom. I'm doing Zoom performances these days too.
Cool. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
McPhail is an amazing place. My dad grew up taking piano lessons at McPhail, so that would have been in the 50s.
Yeah.
And they used to take me down there when I was a kid for musical trolley and to take very early. Piano never really stuck with me, but I took piano lessons down there for a few years. But it's an amazing place.
Yeah, it's been around over 100 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, before we conclude, I do want to ask you about my earliest memory of you is not some random place with your harp, is when we were in elementary school, your mother seems to have organized a book club for us girls, and we read Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret by Judy Blume. Do you remember this?
I remember reading the book. I don't remember the book club.
It was a book club, and it was for those people watching who haven't read this book or know about Judy Blume. This is a book where, this girl's experiencing menstruation for the first time and becoming a young woman. And we were at your house, and I was slightly mortified, but my mother was a big feminist. She's like, "You go, Marnie." You don't remember this particular discussion at your, I remember a couch, and I kind of remember you, and would your mom have facilitated these book clubs?
Oh, she could have, certainly. Yeah.
Do you remember any other books we read?
I don't remember the book club particularly.
You don't?
No, I remember having read that book, and I remember being, vaguely uncomfortable with it. So I would have been uncomfortable talking about it at that time too, I think.
It was at your house with your mother.
Well,
This clearly was just, this memory has been compartmentalized, just sort of put over there.
you know, we're pretty open in my family about all conversations. And like I said, I have 3 older brothers. And so pretty much everything was open for discussion at the dinner table.
Yeah, mine too. But it was a pleasant memory, but I still didn't convince my girls to read Judy Blume. And
No, it's not so popular anymore.
no.
Well, one of my early memories of you, Marnie, is when we had to answer some math questions up on the chalkboard in 6th grade. And we were each given a row of numbers, like a vertical row of numbers. Okay. And you and I had to go up there together, and whoever got done first was the winner. And so you went all the way down the row of numbers, and you were done lightning fast. And I was still, kind of counting my way through all the different numbers. Huh. And I was like blown away by how quick you were. And I remember asking you afterwards, like, how did you do that so fast? And you told me that you paired up all of the numbers that added up to 10. And then whatever was left over, you just added that on. And I was like, well, that's brilliant, because here I was starting at the top, working my way down to the bottom. And that was just, it was like this, little light bulb went off in my head saying, Marnie's so smart.
Oh, well, thank you for sharing that memory. When we have Mr. Mike Case, mathematician extraordinaire, it'll boost my confidence. There's a few more comments, and then I think we should probably close up. We have, oh boy, Tisa Michelle Copstein has some comments. McPhail me too. They're going so fast. Are you there, God? We must. She thinks this is very funny. Katie Fruth, I don't know who Katie Fruth's maiden name is. How traumatic. Judy Blume at your house. Then Karen Koski Hintermeister writes, I remember your 16th birthday celebration at Coccolazoni's. It was the fanciest thing I had ever been invited to.
Yes, those are great memories. And oddly enough, that was where my husband took me on our first date.
Oh, is that still in business? Is Coccolazone?
No.
Okay.
No, long gone. It's a fun restaurant, though.
Well, Shari, do you have anything else you want to share with people for the record, or anything you would like to ask us?
Well, yes, 2 things. One, I would share for the record that I miss all of you guys. So thank you for whoever's tuning in. I mean, I look back on, our time in high school with good memories, and I wish that I was able to keep in touch with more people. So if you have a chance to reach out to me in any way, go find my website, or, give me a call or whatever. It would just be nice to reconnect. I think it's really fun to do that. And the second thing, I was just kind of curious for Marnie and Jason. I look back and I say, what would I have done differently in high school? And I'm wondering if you have things that you would have done differently, if you could go back and do some of it over again. Would you have changed anything, or was it just, great the way it was?
It's hard to think about. I mostly think that, and I know, from some of my friends talk, like I brought up this show to some of my friends, and they'll say, like, high school, give me a break. Like, I want to, forget about that as quickly as possible. I couldn't get far enough away fast enough. So I think, I don't look at high school that way. I think that we had a great time in high school. I think I had a great time in high school. And everything that I tried at Hopkins, which was, I feel like, a very positive environment for trying new things. And any sort of risk that I ever took was rewarded. It was great. I met different people in our school, and had a very rich experience with a lot of different friends. But I do recall that there were things that I wished I would have tried at the time that, for whatever reason, I just didn't. So, even hitting the ground running, like first day sophomore year, and just like signing up for stuff or going to things, those would probably be, the only regrets that I ever really think about is like, I got a lot out of it, but could I have gotten more out of it?
Right.
I look at like Marnie's career as, a member of the dance line, and other things like, people that we knew in school did stuff that we didn't think they were going to do. And it was always kind of cool when they did it. So.
Right.
Well, I appreciate you going first, Jason, because that's a hard, interesting question. I would say I wish that I would have learned a way to be a little less melodramatic. I know that, that's a life coping skill that I want my teenagers to learn. And I don't know how many adolescents aren't melodramatic. But I wish I would have had a few more of those skills to be a little bit more emotionally steady. But it was fun.
We have control over that, right?
Yeah, I don't know how much control adolescents have. There's so many more nice comments for you I want to read before we close. There's Deborah Oleski Brill. Oh, first of all, Shari, you are not on Facebook, correct?
I'm not. I'm one of those people who is afraid of the privacy issues.
You're so smart. So I'm going to read all of these before we close up. This is a little bit out of order. Deborah Oleski Brill says, "Hi, old neighbor." Several people are saying things. You look the same, Shari. Amazing, fun interview. More Harp. And they're right. She looks exactly the same as she did in high school. There's lots of great comments and hellos.
You guys are awesome. Thank you. I appreciate the compliments. And I think, like I said, I'm not on Facebook, but maybe I should get on it just so I can reconnect with everybody.
It's a risk. I don't know.
I know. But I'm missing out. I have that fear of missing out because there's so much happening on it. So maybe keep your eye out for me if there's a way to do it, maybe just professionally so that I can reconnect with people, if that's the easiest way.
Or you could have a pseudonym. I don't know. Okay, well, next week we have Chris Camp Glazer and Heather Mazinga Stevens are joining us. And I heard Jason might go on vacation.
I will not be here next week, so it'll be just the gals.
Okay, maybe I'll have a special co-host join me. I'll talk to Chris and Heather. That might be fun. Thank you so much. This was great.
Thank you guys. It was a really fun time to reconnect and catch up with everybody, and best wishes to everyone for staying healthy and safe.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody for joining us again this week. Join Marnie next week with Chris and Heather.
And
have a great week, everybody.
We'll miss you, Jason. Bye.
I will miss you guys.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.